celebration after spending 42 years of her life as a devout Jew, living within the strict rules of an ultra-Orthodox Jewish community. Julia Haart decided she wanted more.
Secretly saving money to start a new life, Julia fled and is now a very successful businesswoman and the star of her very own reality show.
And Julia joins us now live from New York. Hello, Julia. Now, I know you've been through one hell of a journey and you've got a new book out, Brazen. It was released on Tuesday. Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, Brazen is basically the story of my trajectory. It starts pre-birth, so you get to find out a little bit about my family and takes me through the journey of what it was like living in the world that I come from, what that transition period was, how I've done what I have done, and it's really all the messes, the confusion, the details, because on the show, it's my present informed by my past. The book, it's the whole story.
At what point in your life, prior to deciding to leave, did you realise that the ultra-Orthodox Jewish way of living wasn't for you? Was it when you were a teenager? Was it later than that?
Oh, gosh, I wish. I was when I was a teenager. I wonder what I could have accomplished if I left 20 years earlier. But no, unfortunately, it was not. It was when my daughter Miriam turned 5 and started giving voice to the questions that I had had my whole life and been made to feel guilty about. You know, my whole life I thought to myself, my intellect is not lesser than a man. My desire to learn is not lesser than a man. This whole idea that women need to be subservient to their husbands, that their only way to greatness is through a man. I had all these questions, and yet I felt guilty for even thinking them, because this is what God wants. How dare I, Julia, decide not to do what God wants? And then my 5-year-old would start asking questions, and she would say, Abba, I'd like to play sports. And, you know, my ex would say, well, you know, it's not tznius, it's not modest, because you have to wear skirts, and if a man sees you, he might have, you know, some kind of sexual reaction to that, so you can't play sports. And my little 5-year-old said, well, wait, I'm responsible for his sins. Why isn't he responsible for mine? And she started asking all the questions I'd had my entire life. So now I had been convinced that that made me a bad person. No one could convince me that it made my 5-year-old a bad person, because she had never heard those words from me. So hearing my questions that I'd had my whole life come out of the mouth of a 5-year-old child, that gave me permission to say something is wrong. I'm acknowledging that it's not me, it's the world I live in, and there is something wrong.
Julia, it sounds at that moment, those questions from your 5-year-old daughter, it sounds like that moment was a real weight lifted off your shoulders, and it gave you the opportunity to start this journey to becoming yourself, your own CEO, so to speak.
100. The thing is that I think most people have all of these impediments in their mind as to what they can and cannot do. And religion especially trains you so that you think if you don't do these following steps, you're going against God himself. That's frightening. To hear it from my daughter, it sounded so silly and illogical. And she gave me permission to question. And I think that is the first step in every person's journey, is the acknowledgement that something is wrong and that you want to change that.
Now, you've faced a bit of criticism for speaking out and representing I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, is it Haredi?
Haredi
community.
Close. That was very well done.
Thank you. So you faced a bit of criticism and you've had a bit of negativity thrown your way. How have you responded to this?
Well, you know, obviously it's been very difficult in the sense that, you know, if you see the cover of my book, I'm muzzled, right? Because I always felt that I couldn't speak, I wasn't allowed to study or argue, I had to be obedient and listen. So when people come and say, oh, she didn't live the life she lived, oh, it's not so bad there, of course, it's extremely painful and triggering. It feels like I'm being silenced all over again. But I remind myself, no change maker has ever been popular. Think about the suffragette movement, the movement for the right to vote. Those women weren't just, spoken about in the press or vilified. They were jailed. That's what happens when you go against the status quo, especially in a closed community. And so for the book, I learned my lesson. If you go on brazenbooks.com, I have a link called Sources. And in there, I source every single word that I say. So it's going to be a lot more difficult to call me a liar. But you have to understand that being supportive of me in that world is extremely dangerous. It means your children will be thrown out of school, your other children will not get good shidducha, meaning good matches, you'll lose your standing in synagogue. It's a very closed circle. And so to, come out publicly and say, Julia is saying the truth, Julia, please don't stop talking, is dangerous. My sister, who was on the show season 1, she got so much flack. Her children were threatened to be thrown out of school if she ever spoke to me. So it's very dangerous to help me or to acknowledge what's going on because you have relatives who will be harmed because of it. But to attack me, well, then you're a hero. Your standing in the community gets better. You get accolades. So, of course, any closed society, when you fight fundamentalism, fundamentalism is going to fight back. And I remind myself that, hey, it's not so bad. I just have some people questioning my veracity. No one's thrown me into jail for demanding freedom. Go back 100 years, women were thrown into jail.
Do you still have faith, Julia?
I think I believe in God more now than ever when I lived there. Because my life has been such a string of miracles since I walked out that door. And, I feel like, of course, I put in the work. I was so incredibly stubborn. I refused to give up. If you've read the book, there's just such a mess. It's so much difficulty, and I just refused to give up. But I do believe that God or Allah or Jesus or Muhammad, whatever you want to call this higher power, I do believe that if you put your heart and soul and you eat, sleep, drink, don't think of anything else, you want it so badly, the universe helps you. And I really felt,
Julia, are you still in touch with anyone from the community? Because you've got girls in this community or ladies that are in this community that must be looking up to you.
They're asking questions.
Yeah.
Yes, I get tens of thousands of DMs and actually some letters talking to me about, what the show has done for their life, how they've changed circumstances. Many women in my community ask for help to get out, to understand how they can make that transition. But there are people from communities all over the world who are coming to me and saying, Julia, you've changed my life. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I had 2 women tell me that they chose life because they were planning on committing suicide.
Wow.
One of them had planned, the day the show came out, had planned her suicide. She'd sold all her stuff. She had literally written letters to all her friends. And, she had planned it out to the last minute. And then her friend calls her and says, oh, my gosh, this crazy show, you've got to watch it. And she says, you know what, I'll watch a few hours. And then at the very end, she said she binged the whole thing and decided to choose life.
And Julia, that's an amazing story, but also look at your life now. You're the co-owner of Elite World Group, a modelling and talent company. You're the creative director of luxury Italian lingerie brand La Perla. It's literally the flip side of the coin, isn't it, the life you're leading now?
It is indeed.
Although
I still can't keep my mouth shut. That's my only problem. They wouldn't muzzle me there, and they're not going to muzzle me here.
Yeah, but that's great, because I would imagine your board members absolutely love having you at the top of the table.
I would think so.
Absolutely. And Josie doesn't want to ask, but is there a friends and family discount at the local La Perla store for Josie, please?
I left La Perla when I took over as CEO of Elite World Group. So I am no longer the creative director of La Perla. But, you know, I still have some friends there, darling, so if you need lingerie, let me know.
Well, forever hooking me up, Burns. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Julia, amazing. Julia Haart, a fantastic book, an amazing journey, and a fantastic story that should be read. It's out now, by the way. Thank you so much. Enjoy New York. I believe you've got great weather, but there's a turn coming.
Oh, yes, there is. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being such an inspiration. Thank you.
Yeah, amazing story.